So there were three things I wanted to talk about, but I mean, nothing's written in stone. I definitely think that it's interesting to explore the conversation of all of the fear around this whole thing. And also, I will talk a little bit about the immune boosting things, which again are not, nothing can guarantee that you're not going to get sick or whatever, but what can you do to like be at your best? And then the third thing is talking about the food situation. Like if you are self-quarantining, I have a couple clients actually who are self-quarantining because they have a compromised immune system. So we can talk about that as well. There we go. Someone else just joined us. So is anybody afraid right now?
Yes.
Or fearful? Yes.
Yes.
Do you want to elaborate at all on what you're afraid of?
Basically just, I don't know, the hysteria that's been put out. Two of my roommates are showing, I have three roommates, and two of them are showing some symptoms. And one of them is being really conscientious and she's staying inside and not exposing herself, but the other one is still going outside and immersing in the world. And so I'm like, oh God, what are they bringing back here? I don't know. So it's just fearful because I'm staying here inside where it's, I don't know. It's just like, I'm fearful. I'll admit it.
I mean, I think if you feel afraid, it's, there's no harm in admitting it. I think it's better if we admit it and talk about it,
I think there's a certain amount, everybody has to have some anxiety about this. There's so many aspects to it to be anxious about. Family, financial considerations, a lot of people can't work. There's just so much to it, and it's so widespread. I mean, I think about family in Italy and Germany. I just feel concerned for everything. There's just like this kind of free-floating anxiety, I think. I don't know if it's like fear, but anxiety is fear, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
anything that's not love is still fear.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote a blog post this morning, love or fear. Well, I didn't write it this morning, but I sent it out this morning.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I feel sort of the way that Danielle does. Yes, I have some anxiety around it because my husband is a high risk. And one of the things that makes me really afraid is how cavalier people are. And this is I think, this is a model where social distancing can really, really help control the spread and really, make this fire sort of die down. And I see people who just don't want to understand the ramifications beyond how it affects their small world.
Yeah. That was really well said. Yeah.
Yeah. That's your roommate, right, Danielle?
I think it's also scary because a lot of people still have to go out because of their job. Like one of my roommates is a nurse, and so he has to go to work. And even one of our friends, he works at a hotel, and so he has to go to work. And so people are still just being exposed and also being cavalier, but just they're forced into it too.
Yeah, and part of our responsibility, I feel like, is for me to keep healthy so that the people who have to go out into the world can go out into the world and do what they need to do.
Yeah. What about, and the financial stuff is pretty scary too, right? Like the markets are not doing well and all of that.
Oh, yeah. No, we're happy to be.
Sorry, I just muted that conversation. Side conversation. So what do we do about it?
Well, I, for one, for example, my cleaning lady, She's also very high risk, so I don't know where she's been. I don't really want her coming into my home, and I want to support her. So I'm going to continue to pay her and not have her come, because I know if I don't pay her, her world falls apart. And this eventually is going to, you know, regulate itself. But I need to support her during this time, so that she's available to me, you know, when she can be. She's also been someone with me for a very long time, and I feel loyal to her. And so this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. This is like a temporary time right now of how to make this work, because it will fix itself, but just like in the matter. But it's like hard for people who have to go into work or else they don't get paid. So, and that's a lot of people, hourly workers, and I don't know, people who they don't have hourly, maybe they're salaried, but they have to go into their job, so.
And I understand that, because I don't get paid unless I want, you know, I am a coach and I provide service for people. And if people say, oh, I can't come this week because I'm not, you know, I'm not feeling well, I don't want to meet with you, I don't have the income. So I feel that very acutely. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, I need to raise consciousness at work. I'm also a nurse, and I work with a group of young women who kind of think the whole thing is funny. They feel like they're immune to it. They're not. One of them came to work sick last week. You know, and I'm not in a position where I can say go home, because I'm not the manager. I work in a clinic. And, you know, today I put in some calls to administrative people, because before I go back to work, if I go back to work on Monday, I want certain things to be done at work so that I can feel safer there. And, you know, definitely that kind of attitude that people have, oh, I don't have to worry about it. You know, they're not at a state of consciousness where they're concerned about other people. They're not medical people either. They're, you know, other staff.
I think that's like the scariest part about this, is that, especially like I'm in my young 20s, and so a lot of my friends are being very like nonchalant about it, because they're like, no, it's okay, like I'll be fine, I'll just have symptoms. But I'm like, no, you're not recognizing the bigger picture. Like you could be exposing other people who have underlying conditions or diseases, and not even necessarily just older generations, but there's a lot of people who have things that you can't see. So that's like the part that frustrates me also.
And I think I would have been like that in my 20s, honestly, until somebody pointed it out to me, because I was so wrapped up in my own world. So I sort of, you know, for younger people, I don't, and I see my kids too. I actually have 4 teenage kids. But I see them not really understanding, not connecting, because they're very immersed in their own world. So part of my responsibility is to be gentle with them and really explain, you know, this is what's going on, and this is how you can help and how you can take care of yourself.
Without scaring them.
Yes, it's a very fine line, isn't it, Jill?
Yeah. So we talked about some fears that we have. Is there any other thoughts on that? Because I want to, like, let's just get them all out there. Because I mean, I know we're probably everybody's talking about it a lot, but just in this forum, my vision was to kind of talk about our fears, and then talk about, not, you know, like, yes, what can we do as responsible citizens to not continue the spread of this as rapidly, but also how do we deal with the fear itself?
Well, I mean,
that's ultimately what I'm interested in.
I mean, one of my great fears is the way that our government has handled this, because I understand, I mean, this is something that in order to get ahead of, everybody has to buy into it, and everybody has to accept their position in the control of it. And I see so many people being cavalier because the government has told us not to worry, and they're so completely unprepared with testing and admitting that even our president is he's shaking people's hands. And so if you are, you know, the kind of person who really believes and respects authority, and you see this happening, you think, well, my president isn't worried, so why should I worry? And so, yeah, I'm afraid that our government is unable to do what it needs to provide leadership to help get out of the situation. And that will lead to not only people getting sick, but the economy totally tanking. So there you go. Sorry, everyone. Happy Saturday.
No, I think that's, you know, concern for everybody, sure.
Yeah.
I think also just like another thing that's just naturally caused fear is that when you go into a grocery store, everything is gone. I went to the grocery store and there were no soup cans. All the toilet paper is gone. I don't know why people are flocking to the toilet paper.
Isn't that funny? It's so funny.
Like, why is that the number one thing? I don't understand. But I think that's another thing that causes panic. It's like, oh, all these people are stocking up, so I should too. And then it's, you know, limiting food for other people. And it's just like this whole cycle. So that's another fear factor of mine is if we are quarantined for like 2-3 weeks, do I have enough food?
Yeah.
Well, one of the positive side notes is that sales of bidets have risen dramatically.
Of what?
Bidets. I saw in the news.
Bidets.
Yes.
Oh, bidet.
People forgot about water.
I was like, well, that's very ecologically conscious and good. Clean.
So we have all these scary things floating around, like, you know, this might happen, this could happen, potential. Like, you know, one of my go-tos when I'm fearful of something is to ask myself, do I really know that that's true? Like, do I really know that that thing is going to happen? And I think that we can safely say that none of us know what's going to happen. Like, even I spoke to, there's a guy at my gym who's an ER doctor in Nyack. He was like, oh, I'm not even going to tell you what he said. It was all bad. It was all bad. And I was just, you know, I thought to myself, I was like, he actually, yes, he has a much more probably realistic window on what's going on than we do, the average person does, but at the same time, he really doesn't know what's going to happen. None of us know what's going to happen. So that always makes me feel a little bit better in a way, because I have a choice to predict bad things happening or good things happening. Like, that's totally within my control in my mind. So I can sit here and think about all the bad things that might happen, or I can think about like the positive. Maybe good things are going to happen. Like you were talking about, you know, changes in infrastructure and economy and, you know. So anyway, I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on what you've been doing to cope with this, because that's really where I want to go with this, right? Like, how do we just sit here and live in fear, shivering and shaking, or do we, you know, attempt to feel a little bit better and not be, you know, because it can spiral, right? Like, it's one thing to be nervous, but it's another to spiral down and down and down, and all of a sudden you're like paralyzed with fear, which also, I think is not going to help.
Also, if you can do something, sometimes just, you know, the action of doing helps you feel like maybe you have some, you know, some more power in it. Personally, things I've done, and I'm in a high-risk group, and I have, you know, I've been putting essential oils like thieves and you know, keeping it on in the house, and, you know, taking vitamins, eating, you know, just being really careful more about my eating, you know, just like the little everyday things that maybe, you know, can help the immune system. So at least I feel like I'm doing something. You know, I feel like I need to have some activity that makes me feel more positive.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic.
My husband and I have talked a lot about this, and we have prepared ourselves. We know what we're doing. We have talked about, so I'm going to be the one to go out and get all of the supplies and everything that we need. Be very careful about what I touch, not touching my face. When we bring things into the house, we wipe off everything that we bring into the house. So when we go grocery shopping, everything, all of the containers and everything, we wipe them down. We wash our hands tons of times a day, and then as much as possible, we're staying home. And then just going about our business. What else, what else needs to be done? So we've talked about it, we've put a plan into place, and we're just moving forward.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate that Jen's husband is in a high risk group as well. So that's why I think that if that makes you feel better, even if you don't consider yourself to be in a high risk group, do it. But it's also, don't feel, do what feels good to you. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
In terms of the physical, sanitary hygiene protection aspect, like that's pretty diligent. And I think it's great that you're doing that. And you kind of have, you pretty much have to do it. So
yeah, exactly. And not everybody does, but that's how we decided to handle it. And to Eileen's point, we feel like we're doing as much as we possibly can. And then we just have to let go and trust that we're doing what we can.
Yes, I love it. That's great. And I think, Keith, are you there, Keith? You want to talk about, you mentioned something about love being the opposite of fear. I don't know. You said something about how it's the opposite of fear or something like that.
No, but that's actually, I don't think love is the opposite of fear.
Oh, that's right. I remember you said that. Yeah.
Because love can have no opposite, But anyway, what were you asking me about something else?
No, just about your perspective on fear and like the emotional, like coping with it.
Yeah. I guess we all have a choice, in my opinion. Our thoughts, easier said than done. But yeah, right now there's just so many unknowns that it's hard to really just, be like, oh, everything's going to be great. I just lost 2 months of income, just disappeared. I have no idea how I'm going to figure that out, but I'm not freaking out. I'm just like, all right, everything's going to be okay one way or the other. And that's kind of, a place I come from about all of this. So, but it's easy to let your mind run for sure. I think it's just good to maybe sometimes put yourself in check. And does it do you any good to worry? Mm-hmm. I don't think it does.
Yeah, I agree. It's weird. It's almost like a subconscious thing too. Like I'm very diligent about checking my thoughts throughout the day, but like when I wake up in the morning, I feel like a heaviness in my chest, and it's like a deep, unconscious kind of worry that I'm having, and it's there, right? So I have to when I wake up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I have that feeling. I have to kind of work myself out of it. And one thing that really, really, really helps me is deep breathing. And I can feel it, like when I inhale love, like I just kind of say that word to myself as I'm inhaling. And then when I exhale that heavy feeling in my chest. And there's definitely a physiological impact from deep breathing, because it does stimulate your vagus nerve, which is part of your autonomic nervous system, which kind of pushes you a little bit more into the parasympathetic state, which is the rest and digest state. So just mechanically, if you're feeling anxious, you can mechanically influence your nervous system, which I think is just so amazing. Like we have this tool with us wherever we go. No matter what happens, we always have our breath, and we can always just breathe. And sometimes it's hard, sometimes but you can still do it. And even if you don't do it perfectly, it'll make you feel a little bit better, which I think is I think that is all that anybody can expect of ourselves, is to just feel a little bit better. And then if you do feel a little bit better, you can make yourself maybe feel a little bit better. And I like to work in very small increments. Mm-hmm. And I think thoughts that make me feel a little bit better, like, you know, like the thought of like, oh shit, the economy is going to tank, right? And then I'm like, well, wait a minute, I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm not a magician. So I'm going to, not a magician, you know, fortune teller. So since I don't know, then why don't I just not think about that right now? let me think about something that makes me feel a little bit better. And so I kind of work myself into a more positive place.
I think those little things are so important because little by little, little becomes a lot, right? So if you just take little steps and little things that you can do, they compound.
Right, exactly. So just, is there anything else because I also want to talk a little bit about the immune boosting stuff, but if anybody has any other thoughts on this topic, please, you know, we're here to just sort of chat about this stuff, so.
Can you just pop into the conversation, Jill?
Yes, who is that?
It's Elaine.
Oh, hi, Elaine. How are you?
How are you?
Good, good, good.
Yeah, I've been quiet and listening. But
yeah, sure. Pop in at any time because we're there's video up, so some of us can see each other, some of us can't. So you know, it's harder when you can't see everybody.
Well, that's good because I'm in pajamas with my hair uncombed. So I'm glad I'm on the not see side. I've been relating to just about everything everybody has said, and I totally agree with your concept. I call it the Scarlett O'Hara. You know, I'll worry about that tomorrow. And that's kind of my mantra when something like that pops up. You know, it doesn't mean that I'm not paying attention. It just means, yeah, I'm going to worry about that when I have to. So I try to, you know, we set everything up that we can, you know, doing everything we can. You know, washing things off. I'm the one leaving the house, you know, canceling social engagements, boosting immune system, wiping down counters, you know, washing hands. But when I get to the point where you're talking about things like the economy and, you know, we're retired, I just watched my retirement fund.
Yeah.
And there's no 20 years to make it up.
Right.
So it's that kind of thing where I just have to say, well, you know, I'll worry about that one tomorrow when I have to. Right now, I don't have to, so I'm not going to. And, you know, try to clear it from my space doing it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
So that might be a mantra somebody can adopt, you know. I'll worry about that part tomorrow. I'm doing everything I can, you know, today.
Yes, I love it. Love it, love it, love it. It's amazing. It's
just
so
remember
simple.
Scarlett O'Hara. That's what she used to say. I'll worry about that tomorrow.
Yeah, I love the simplicity of it because you'll remember that, right? Like, so sometimes there are these complicated things and you're like, I'm never going to remember how to do that. Oh, and the other thing that I wanted to mention that I also wrote in my blog post, which I love this idea. I sort of came up with it myself, but then I was augmented with this woman that I know. We had a conversation about it, but there are several things that if I think about them, they make me feel really good right away. Not really good, but like better. And then maybe eventually really good. And they are appreciation. So like I will appreciate, some of you may know that I'm totally obsessed with the Hudson River, and I'm like, if I think about the Hudson River, I immediately feel happy. Like I love the river and I go there every day, sometimes twice a day. Appreciation for your family, for the health that you do have, for whatever you can find, you know. And then also self-love. Like if you believe, I believe that we have a divinity in all of us, that we all have a soul and that we're all lovable because of that. Like our human side, sometimes, you know, it varies, but I feel like we all are at our core lovable. And so self-love can also be something that can make you feel a little bit better. And being present in the moment. Like sometimes if I'm struggling to feel appreciation or whatever, I'll just bring myself right into the present moment and just, what do I hear? What do I see? What do I feel? Like sometimes it's just birds, you know, and I'm like, wow, those birds, they're so cool, you know, and try to like get into the moment. The breath definitely helps too. I don't know if any of you have other ideas about that, but things that, the other one I have is awe. That's what I learned from my friend Lori, awe. So to be in awe, like for me, I'm often in awe of my children. Like I just have so much love for them that it's really easy for me to like just think about them and feel better. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts or things you want to add to that.
Well, just nature in general, yeah, I think is helpful. And we live on a pond with a little bit of woods behind us, and I'll sometimes just sit on my porch for 20 minutes, you know, with something to drink and just see what's going on out there. And I'll do the same thing, you know, pushing the bad thoughts away. I'm a big gardener, and right now is the beginning of gardening season, so when I can't get to sleep at night, instead of worrying about this, I'm like, well, let me see if I can mentally plan my garden. Where am I going to put those pumpkins? And I know it sounds, you know, silly and little, but it gets the control back.
It does not sound silly at all.
It doesn't sound little at all either. It sounds very powerful.
Yeah,
Simple, maybe simple, but powerful.
Yeah, so I will, you know, I used to tell my kids this when they were little, you know, when we'd stand in line and they were impatient, and I would try to distract them with, oh, well, you know, let's plan your birthday party, you know, or let's, when do we want to go to the beach next, and where do we want to go? So I think, you know, some of those take your mind, you know, to another place, you know, just envisioning, you know, what's the most beautiful place you've been to, and sort of run through the photos in your head and, you know, go back to those places. And so I do, and I do find, I do the Andrew Weil. I'm sure you can look it up, and I think I have the numbers right. It's not just his, it's from yoga based, the 478.
The breathing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is amazing. And if I can't sleep, that's my first go-to. And you can actually feel the vagus nerve reset when you do that. And that's, you take an inhale of 4, you hold it for 7, and you exhale for 8. And there's something about the pattern. You can do it with the square too, you know, 4, 4, 4, 4, hold, breathe in, hold, exhale, breathe in, hold, exhale. The 4, 4, 4 is harder, but the 4, 7, 8, and for some reason, I don't ever get to, I don't think the 4th time. Although lately I've probably been challenging that. But about the 3rd or 4th time you do that, you can actually feel, you'll get an urge to take a very deep breath, and that's your vagus nerve resetting. And it just takes you back. So if I don't have the numbers right, if it's 487 and not 478, but just look it up. That if you don't do it already, it's a very powerful tool. You know, for tamping down that anxiety.
Yeah. Were you going to say something, Mom?
Yeah, I was just thinking we didn't really mention meditation, even if it's short. Just kind of similar to the breathing or, you know, the river. But even just at home in your room, you know, you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know about you guys, but like earlier in the conversation when we were talking about all the scary stuff, I was getting a very physical reaction to it because I'm so tuned into like how I feel. And I was feeling pretty crappy. And now I feel good. I feel fine. And I don't know if any of you have felt that shift, but I certainly have. So I'm glad that we talked about this. So does anybody have any questions about immune stuff? Like what, you know, I think the sanitation stuff we got down.
I'd like to hear what everybody is. I have a functional chiropractor I work with, and he sent out a list early on. You know, that's my philosophy. I'm just trying to make sure our immune systems are in tip-top shape. And I'd just be curious, you know, what is everybody doing along that line too? I mean, we're doing C and D and zinc, and I've got my elderberry syrup on hand, and you know, trying to work on, that's my philosophy, is that, you know, the stronger your immune system is, the better off. And if I can, you know, get my husband to just do half of it, we'd be in good shape.
Yeah. Does anybody want to share what you're doing?
Well, Jill, this is Mary. I don't know if
Hey,
you can hear
Mary.
me. Hi. Hi, I'm also in my pajamas with my hair all sticking up, so I've got this nifty little icon in my place. I would say one thing I'm trying to do, and just started this week really, I'm just starting to sleep more. Because I am tired, and I think the stress is kind of making me a little more tired, so that's part of the reason I'm late getting a call this morning. I went to bed last night, I think around 9, and then slept till, I don't even know, till 8:30, 8. Well, I woke up at normal time, but then, so I think I guess I was really tired. But that always helps me a lot. Sleeping when I feel a cold, anything coming on, I feel like sleeping just, I don't know, really helps.
Yeah, well, it's not, it's real. Like it's not, you're not imagining it. You know what I mean? Like it's actually a real thing. Yes, because sleep deprivation is one of the surest ways to compromise your immune function. So definitely sleep is like, I would say, if you can't do anything else, that should be getting done. And, you know, for those of us who are able to stay home, it's a blessing, right? Like I was actually, when I was walking this morning, I was imagining like just all across the world, you know, millions, hundreds of millions of people just staying at home. And like the energy just, the energy of the world just completely shifting because people are just, all of a sudden the stress factor, right? Like we're all vibrating in this like high stress mode, all of a sudden, even if we're worried and scared, just by being home and not commuting and sleeping more and spending more time with your family, that's gonna shift everything in the world, the energy of the world, I think. So that's to me, like a really positive thing that I think is gonna happen.
That is
also
such an awesome point.
Yeah, it's also important to remember, like when you're going from home, to remember to still do stuff. I mean, like I'm not going to the gym because I'm fearful about it. So I'm like, hey, I'll do those YouTube yoga videos to stay active or something along those lines. Like not just sit around and watch TV all day, but do something in that sort of sense that gets your gears going. Like I love that one of the other people talking was gardening because that's outdoors, it's in the open air, and it's still fun and enjoyable. So.
Yeah, that's great, Danielle. I really do want to emphasize the, you know, going outside is actually good. Like we should be going outside. You know, I take a walk. I don't touch anybody. I don't even see anybody usually. So I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not exposing myself. And although I definitely have a cold right now, so.
Hey, and one tip for everybody, my daughter reported this to me last night. She went out for a walk. It was in Dumont, where they just reported their first case, Dumont, New Jersey. And the new neighbors came to meet her dog and pet her dog. And he's like 100-pound lab, and she's like, oh my God, I can't give him a bath. It's 9 o'clock at night. So don't touch anybody's dog for your own sake and for that person's sake. She was, you know, a little freak, and she works in insurance, so she has to go to work. She's the health insurance guru at a brokerage in Park Ridge, so she's got to go to work. She's not allowed to work from home because of HIPAA and, you know, whatever. So, you know, she gets home from work, takes the dog out for a nice walk to enjoy the spring air, and she said they were so nice, and they, you know, the dog was so thrilled, but all she could think of was, ah! So, and you can't Clorox your dog. So
That's a good point.
So please don't pet anybody's dog.
Okay, that's good to know. But being outside is wonderful. Like I saw some article. I didn't, you know, there's so much going around. I think we also have to be cautious about what we read, and even just partaking of the indulgence of spending 15 minutes scrolling through Facebook, just getting more and more freaked out by everything you see. But, you know, there was one, I try to go through the, you know, pass through them and just look at the positive ones. There was one about like being outside and how that actually in the 1918 outbreak that the people who were outdoors, like they actually had to put some patients outside because they didn't have room. And the people who were outside recovered more quickly than the people who were inside. So definitely, I think it's something to be said for going outside, getting sunlight. Definitely, I mean, just I don't think that I could overemphasize the importance of taking in vitamin A and D. I think in terms of like supplemental stuff, there's nothing more powerful that you could do. And the only problem with my just being like, hey, just take a bunch of A and D is that they're both fat soluble vitamins that if you take too much, they can cause toxicity. However, most people in March are low in D. So you probably have a pretty good buffer there. And then A, it really depends on the person, but at least taking like 5,000 IU a day, I would say would be like the minimum I would be doing. But I myself tend toward low, so I'm taking more than that. And like my family members, I made them all take like mega doses.
Do you have a brand that you recommend, Jill?
I like Biotics Research because they have drops and it's so easy to take larger amounts in drops. It's a professional grade company, so may not be easy to buy. You could probably go on Amazon and get it, but they have like a 12,000 IU vitamin A, which like everybody has, right? My mom, you have it, right? Or...
I don't know what the dosage is. You said 5,000?
Well, let's put it this way. I can't be a responsible practitioner and tell everybody on this call to be like, take this amount, except we know that 5,000 IU is the RDA. So if you're taking that, then you're not going to be over supplementing and you'll be getting the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say minimum of 5,000 a day. Most multis will have that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the D is also, I think it's 2,000 a day. I take 5,000 and most people can safely take 5,000 a day. You know, don't take 5,000 a day for the next 6 months. You just need to take it for the next 30 days and bring your level up, or, you know, even if you're at the upper range of the level, you're more protected. So, you know, it's a temporary thing. If you keep going for months and months and months, you will cause toxicity, most likely. So just, you know, the next 10 days or 20 days or whatever, just make sure you're taking the minimum at least. That's what I can safely say. I know I did a bunch of research about the flu and the common cold because we obviously don't have the research on this. So I'm just, whatever I read, I'm applying to coronavirus, which may not necessarily be the same because no one's done the studies, right? But we know for the common cold and the flu that vitamin C, when taken at the beginning of, if you start feeling under the weather, can reduce the severity and duration. It's not going to necessarily prevent it, but if you do feel under the weather, it can help shorten and make you not get as sick. Same thing with elderberry, although there is some evidence that elderberry may be preventive. Like you could actually take, like I've been taking elderberry and we've all been taking it. Out of the botanicals, elderberry is definitely the most well-researched and most solid data that you can go on. Beyond that, there's a lot of stuff that's just, and zinc of course too, but like in terms of the botanicals, like echinacea and golden seal and ginger, and you know, there's a lot of garlic. There's some research on that, but I didn't find anything that I was like, oh yeah, I need to take this. It was like, oh, maybe it'll help. So am I eating a lot of garlic? Yes. Am I juicing ginger? Yes. But I'm not like going out and buying tons of those kind of supplements, if that makes sense. But I'm also of the mindset that if you feel better taking echinacea, take it. Because the placebo effect is real.
One of the things that you point out, that you underline, Jill, is that having your immune system in tip-top shape means reducing the load in other ways, right? So we've been doing this for a while because my husband's my husband's lungs. But so we stopped drinking. I mean, we don't drink soda. We don't have any additives in our food at all. We eat as much fresh stuff as possible, grass-fed meat, you know, just very, very simple. We switched cleaning products, so everything is non-toxic shampoos, all of that kind of stuff, because the more you can do to reduce the load in other ways makes, more of your resources available should you get sick.
That's right.
So we also pay attention to the sun, because there's a lot of studies about light and how light can really help you stay healthy. So I make sure every morning to sit and get 15 minutes of sunlight in my face, or whatever kind of light is coming in. We have sunlight today, but so just those things, and knowing your body, as you pointed out before, Jill, what works for you, because it might be different for somebody else.
Yeah, and that the light is also important for, like, if you do have sleep disruption, it can help you, like getting out first thing in the morning, so that your sleep is actually better too.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just want to point out that stress is a major factor in immune function as well. So the whole conversation about not living in fear and anxiety is actually it's a direct intervention to at least not be compromised in that area, right? Like, again, there's no guarantee. You could be doing everything by the book and still, the truth is we're all probably going to get it within the next year and a half. From what I've heard. So the flu goes around, the common cold goes around. Sometimes we get sick. The question is, how prepared are we? But you can only prepare so much.
That whole conversation really is about wellness, right? So we have a real opportunity to use this time of being afraid to make positive changes in our lives, that if we continue them after this whole thing is over, will only make our lives more interesting, enriching, fun, fulfilling.
Yes. So the other thing I just wanted to mention that's not really probably in the media or anything, which is very annoying to me, is that glutathione is I don't even know how to qualify. It's a molecule. it's a proteinous molecule that we make. Our bodies make glutathione in large amounts, or else we wouldn't last very long. But it's very important for detoxification. But there's also a lot of evidence. So glutathione has actually been used in ERs for people with pneumonia, and it's also very helpful for people with asthma. So any kind of like respiratory dysfunction or disorder that's going on, glutathione can actually help. So I have one for myself and one for anybody else that I need to run and give it to. I bought 2 bottles. I just bought some just in case. But, if that's something that you are worried about, like actually, especially in terms of the upper respiratory infections and all of that, I would highly recommend that you get liposomal glutathione, which is the glutathione is in a basically oils. It's like emulsified within oil, so that you just put it on your tongue and it gets absorbed through your mouth. One of the problems with elderly people is that they have less glutathione, which relates to multiple things, one of which is digestion, low stomach acid. So if you can put it in your mouth, you don't have to worry about it not being absorbed or whatever. It's going to get absorbed right away in your mouth through the capillaries, and it's going to be available to you. So liposomal glutathione is, I think, a good thing to have on hand if you're worried about like complications from this.
So you don't take it on a daily basis. You would take it if you get sick.
You could take it on a daily basis. I actually have just been taking it, but it's an expensive supplement, so you may not want to just always be downing glutathione. But yes, if you want to take it preventively, there's no harm in that, except your pocketbook. I mean, you probably only benefit from it.
We take it every day, glutathione. My husband has the lung issue, but it's also been, it's one of the things that gives your mitochondria energy. And if your mitochondria don't have energy, you would die in like a second. You would drop dead. So literally, and it really helps that as well. So we definitely take it and have certainly seen a difference with it.
Again, a brand? Anybody?
There's Designs for Health is the company that I buy almost all of my supplements from, Designs for Health.
I don't remember which one we have.
You know, I mean, glutathione, you got to be careful because there are better and not as good forms of it. I forget what the term is. I want to say reduced. I feel like they use a different term, but reduced, basically the active form of glutathione is what you want to get. There's a company, I don't know if all of you can see the chat, but I'm going to put Seeking Health has a liposomal. My eyes are not up yet. Seeking Health has a liposomal glutathione, and then Designs for Health does as well. Seeking Health, I'm pretty sure that you could just go online and buy from them directly. You could also get vitamin A from them and vitamin D. They're a good company. They're like sort of straddled between the retail and the professional world. But the guy who runs the company, I know him, and he's like not skimping on the quality of the ingredients and all that. All right, cool. So the other thing, because we have like 10 minutes left, I want to talk about is just like food while we're in this sort of zone where maybe some of you are stocking up or whatever. You know, actually, the reason why I decided to do this call is because a client of mine, she was like, you should talk to people about what they should eat, because she's quarantined because she's in a high risk group, immunocompromised. And so she was like, went and bought all this stuff. Actually, her husband went and bought all this stuff. But a couple of things that she mentioned to me. Number one, grocery stores deliver. And that's something we may not think about in our normal lives. It seems like some kind of big indulgence for me, at least. But hey, they do deliver. And I think it was Whole Foods. One of the local grocery stores, it may have been Whole Foods, they actually have they'll just drop it off for you. You don't have to greet somebody at the door or interact with them at all. They just leave it there for you. So that's kind of cool. You know, restaurants, takeout, delivery, that sort of thing as well. Does anybody have anything they want to share, like what you're doing in this regard? Like interesting, like how do you eat healthily when you may not have fresh food? You know, I mean, like planning for that.
I I have a plan to go through all my fresh produce first, of course, but I stocked up on a lot of fruits and vegetables and protein that I just put in my freezer. So it's like basically fresh food, but right now it's frozen. So it's kind of like on halt. And so, I mean, the grocery store is really limited in the frozen options because everyone's going crazy, but I tried to do that as much as I can. And then I got just like soups that were not awful. And so like, that's a good thing to have in mind. And like snacks or like stuff, like if I'm running low to like supplement in a meal, I got like nuts, you know, like something along that nature, like foods that last a while. I got squash, you know, things that don't go bad necessarily. Really unripe avocados, so they're ready.
They'll all be ready at the same time. Eat them all at once.
I know, unfortunately.
I was thinking cabbage seems to last a long time too.
Yeah.
That might be a good way to have something that you can, you know, that's fresh even a couple of weeks from now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great.
Don't forget your garden.
Don't forget your garden, and don't
lettuce.
forget wild planting. You know, the dandelions are coming up. Dandelion greens are great.
As long as nobody's spraying them.
Right.
Oh.
Be careful by the road.
Depends on where you are.
Any other ideas?
Oh, yeah, you know what I did is I bought a couple chickens, whole chickens, and froze them, because once you you know what I mean, over time, if it is Michigan and stuff, you know, it's sort of like a reserve, and then a chicken can get stretched out for days. You know what I mean? Because you can like have multiple meals, and then you can make stock from the bones, and then make a soup, you know, and stuff like carrots and onions, and well, carrots got refrigerate, but potatoes and onions, you know, if you keep them cool and dry, last pretty long.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we've been doing, is just doing that. And then, even like I made some stock, but I still, you can't use it all, so you freeze it, and then, a week later you got a whole, a lot of good stuff in stock. So that can go a long way.
Right.
Yeah, and there is, it's good for you too, the bone broth. I'm making some today too.
Yeah, we've been trying to do like just a cup in the morning, every morning.
Yeah. My client had mentioned, I thought this was very clever of her. She had bought like jarred artichoke hearts and jarred red peppers and mushrooms, and even like you can buy like jarred like asparagus spears and stuff. And I was like, that's so cool, because I don't know, it just seemed like it wasn't something that I would have thought of, but that will stay forever. And the nice thing too is that, you want to get stuff that you're actually going to use eventually. Even if there's no quarantine, you feel like sort of foolish, right? Like I have all this food that I'm never going to eat now. So, to buy stuff that you think you will eventually eat. But I love the idea of those like sort of jar, not just canned stuff, but also jarred stuff. Veggies and stuff like that.
And dry foods, lentils, and you can get a lot from a bag of beans and lentils.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I was also thinking, like, especially since most people are homebound now, is like baking. You could make like, I want to make a paleo banana bread. I'm super busy because all of my clients are via Zoom anyway, so nothing has changed for me. Like I still have to, I'm on my normal work schedule. I'm sure a lot of people are, but some people aren't, right? And they have more free time. So baking and, freezing, like you can make meatloaf, you can make paleo banana bread, which I love. And like soups, you can freeze soups and all of that stuff. So if you have extra time, you can do that sort of thing. Because I was thinking about breakfast foods, right? Like I eat eggs every day for breakfast. And then if I don't have eggs, what am I going to do?
Yeah, we've been using it as an opportunity to experiment too, just by putting different sort of random ingredients that we have and seeing what pops up as a recipe. And it's kind of fun, actually. I just got one it was just so incredibly delicious with butternut squash and kale and lentils. It was so yum, 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 yum. And I would not have thought to put butternut squash and lentils together. That wouldn't have been but it works.
I like the squash idea and the cabbage idea. Thank you for that. See, this is great. Like we can share, there's the knowledge, the brain trust, the knowledge of everybody on this call, we could like come up with so many ideas. So we're at like 9:57, and I think we should probably end by 10 since it's Saturday and people want to get on with their day. Is there any other final thoughts or ideas of other ways that we can enjoy this process? I do want to mention, I really appreciate what Danielle said about doing other things. Like this is an opportunity to clean out the basement or well, maybe not for the respiratory situation, but do things that maybe you've been putting off in your house. For sure. Any other thoughts?
I took out 7 yards of fabric I bought probably 2 years ago. And I have to make 6 pillow covers with it that I'm dreading, but I'm like, okay, now's the time.
Think how good that'll feel.
Well, I am projecting further into the future with that, yes.
Well, and I really appreciate you setting this call up, Jill, because it is a way to have community and to feel connected in this time of sort of disconnection. So I appreciate your initiative in setting this up. Thank you.
Yes,
Me
thank
too.
you.
This is Mary again. Me too. Thank you, Jill. And one thing I would say, I don't know if anyone else has kids on the call, but I was just talking to my girls about how they're off, looks like all of next week at least, how we can make this fun. what we could do to, they're teenagers, so we don't do so many like home projects anymore, but maybe we could do something, or we could do something outside together, or I'm not sure. Oh, one other little interesting thing I heard that might be interesting to anyone who does have time now is that there's a podcast, I'll put it in the chat, called I think it's The Myth Maker, and it's about how there's like sort of a mythological archetype that this whole illness kind of is mimicking, and it has a very positive end. It's kind of an interesting way of thinking about it. Kind of, Jill, what you were saying a little bit earlier about there's actually a lot of good that can come out of this too, and it could highlight some things that are not great in the world too, and maybe we're going to learn to let them go. So I'll put that in if anyone's a podcast listener. I thought it made me feel really good.
What's it called?
Let me just get that, one sec.
But you could email it to me after, Mary. Oh, you got it?
It's called Living Myth by Michael Mead. And it's episode 166, A Time of Conscious Descent, which sounds more depressing than it is.
That's funny.
When I feel nervous, I guess one thing I could say is I tend to listen, like myths always make me feel better.
Yeah, that's nice. Well, if you want to do this again, let me know. Just email me and be like, if enough people are like, hey, let's do this again in a week or in next, I don't know, some point. We could certainly do it, because this has been really nice for me, and I hope for everybody on the call.
Yeah, it was helpful to get that sense of community, especially when we're all kind of isolated now.
Right, I know. I had this vision. I was like, we could just get on a call every day and be like, yo, what's up? What's going on? Like, just because.
Have you seen that video of the Italians outside, like out there?
Oh my gosh, it is amazing.
It's so great.
It's just so joyous.
It's amazing. I didn't watch it, but I will now. I've seen it going around.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jill.
You're welcome. So enjoy the time that you have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.